All right, everybody, welcome to today's call. It is Friday, May 17th of 2019, and this is the Realty Classroom sales training call for the record. Looking forward to doing this. I always like to go back and hit a little bit of the notes from the mastermind group yesterday. And there were a couple things that Autumn and Laura and I and my team were talking about. And one of the things we picked up on was some notes from yesterday, and that was the concept of conversational tone or conversational approach being a control tactic. Okay, Autumn said that, and I wrote it down here. And I thought that was interesting because I think a lot of us are looking to scripting to try to be that thing that helps us gain a sense of control and organization, and that's probably the right direction. The challenge is when you start to become the wrong kind of actor, when you're trying to memorize something and regurgitate it back and you believe that that's going to help, what it's actually doing is making you sound like a robot, and you're completely losing the intent, which is to be conversational. It's very difficult to be a professional actor or actress. I know that because I birthed one, and she just finished her BFA in acting, and I can't even fathom how much work they did to try to get on stage in front of people to just sound conversational and normal. So how do you do that when you're a salesperson? How does that translate? Well, I think it's a matter of this concept of hitting beats. And Autumn and I were just working on this on the probate side of things too. And that's new to us in this office. And so we were really just trying to find our sea legs, per se, to really find out, well, what's that conversation sound like? And what is the what's in it for the consumer immediately when you pick up the phone? Because if there's not something in it when you pick up the phone for any type of consumer lead or contact that you're calling, you're going to sound like you're lost, like you're rambling, and you weren't prepared. And unless you're really good at ad-libbing, which I don't recommend in business ever when it comes to telemarketing in particular, and in the house where I follow a very scripted performance to a large extent, I think you have to be careful of all that stuff and you have to be organized. So conversational tone or conversational approach where there is still a very clear scripted performance behind it is what we try to teach here. And again, it's inside and outside sales. And I want to make that clear. But I am always trying to simplify it. Less is more in a conversation, because when you overwhelm the consumer with too much information or they're not sure where you're going, they shut down. And I've learned from studying the story brand information by Donald Miller that as he relates it back to the I don't know how to say it, the basic brain, you're trying to stop the stress and only find a way. Your brain's only looking to survive, right? That's all it's looking to do. It's not necessarily looking to thrive first. It's looking to survive. So you probably can be empathetic to that if you think about any time somebody's coming at you and you're tired and there's just too much coming at you. You shut down in a relationship of any kind. You just shut down because that's your brain saying, all right, this is killing us. Stop listening, turn those people away, yell at them, right? Whatever it might be. So what's interesting is we're having a laugh about one of the probate calls that Autumn had where somebody swore at her, right? That's just the reaction. We laugh about it because we're professionals here and we get it. We just get that that's the moment in time. But the teachable moment is to go back into that probate situation and say, okay, so here's somebody who's exasperated. What are we saying on the phone, right? What are we saying? Because we're in this discovery mode for scripting. That's what we're in a discovery mode. And we deal with it from chunking up perspective and hitting beats. So for example, in that case with probates, I just listened live to Autumn sitting 10 feet away from me today, what the beat sounded like. And I said to her, why didn't you just cut to the chase? And she said, geez, I edited out a lot already. What do you mean? And I said, well, let's think about it. What our offer is information that would empower them. That's our offer. So what is it that we have in the package for content that's going out to them? And all my mastermind members, we talked about this yesterday. Content is the stitching of the safety net beneath the conversations that are going to continue. What do I mean by that? Everybody wants property information if they have context to buy or sell. It's our job to get in there and be the provider of that, even though it's prolific and anybody can give it to them. It's our job to get in there, provide it to them, and add our insight. That's our job, right? Period. So when it comes to context, now the only tweak that we have is, and with probates, they're the hardest. We don't even know if there's real estate to sell when we first pick up the phone. So there's a little bit more discovery. And I think scripting with the probate side of things becomes even more interesting and challenging in that you can't just cut to the chase about, hey, I saw that your beautiful property was online and now it's not, right? This is different. You say, look, I can see that you're the administrator of the estate of Sally Fields, right? I mean, that's the deal. Poor Sally Fields. I just put her in the grave. She's not there yet, right? So the point is that we don't know. So just that context of saying, I saw this. It's interesting when you look at it, right? Because we're saying, I saw that you were online and it didn't work out. Right. I see that you're the administrator of this estate. That's all we know at that point in time. So from a scripting standpoint, to give that context, I'm this person from this company. I'm calling because I saw this thing. I recognize this thing about you. And that's the first beat that is 100% scripted. It has to get out of somebody's mouth to give the context in which what I was saying to you about probates. You said the word realty. So that was good. They saw that, you were a real estate agent or heard that. And so the context was there. Right? Now, as we move a little bit further into the conversation, we have to be helpful. So to the expired, we're already into the property information. Right. So I sent you some pictures and details of properties that were like yours that sold. Yes. Thought that would be helpful. And in the case you're thinking about relisting, I also gave you our plan, right? Period. Something like that is made conversational. Right. But the beats are, here's who I am. Here's what I know about you. Here's what I have for you. 3 beats. And to develop the right script out of that can still be conversational, where you have that control. So it's interesting to see, and again, I'm talking to Autumn sitting here with me today as we're just reviewing, as people roll in here, we're reviewing what happened with probates, right? Right. So the ability to say, okay, how is this situation like any other context? What do I really have for them? Because obviously what you're trying to determine is, do they have property to sell? Is there context for us? Right. But with probates it's so sensitive. You crack through that door too quickly. And you've already had the 2, 3.
I've had 2 or 3. Yeah.
That were harsh.
I've had a couple lectures and I've had a couple swears.
Couple lectures, couple swears, go away, right?
Yeah.
So thank gosh that you are a professional,
right?
Because it doesn't faze you.
No.
So instead we come back and say, how do you adjust? Right. My suggestion to Autumn today was the adjustment. Move swiftly through that intro. As much as you're trying to be empathetic, given that there's death and there's a problem, we don't want to overdo the emotional side of this. Right. I think today the pendulum swings back towards technique and tactic. Yeah. Right? I think we come back here. We get it. Yeah. We talked about this yesterday in the mastermind and the Griffin Realty Group team meeting about that love and care for that person. Good. We got it. But let's swing back today to tactical. Right. I think what becomes really important in that moment on probate is that here's who you are. I know you're in this situation. I'm not sure you need this, but I have a timeline. I have a glossary and I have a list of attorneys. I'd like to send it to you. Most people at least like the timeline and the glossary, even if they already have the attorney. I'd like to send that to you.
And it's the same beat, the same amount of beat.
Same thing.
It's the same pitch, just different words.
It's 1, 2, 3, right? It's a dance step.
ABC.
Now, once that's out, we talked about this, right? You have to wait for the reaction to come in from there. So once the reaction is there, no, I don't need that. No, I don't want that, whatever. Okay, fine. We made the offer, and even if it's rejected, if it's accepted, wonderful, easy segue next. Right. Okay. But if it's rejected, oh, good, no problem. Sounds like you're all set in that department. While I have you, is there any real estate in the estate? Because if there is, we'd be happy to give you a free evaluation for estate purposes. Boom. Because now, for state purposes, not to sell the property. Everybody's rushing down the line. I know you didn't. That's here we are.
Yeah, right.
Right. So the point is, I think if we kick the door down, well, is there okay, you didn't want that. Well, then here's the real reason I'm calling. It sounds phony. Right. Okay. Well, look, that's service number 1. Sounds like you're good. Check that box. But number 2 is most probate and estate situations, in those cases, An evaluation for estate purposes is needed. We'd be happy to give you a free one to evaluate the property for free and give it to you.
Wow.
Yeah, right. So,
That's a powerful
it's powerful
Yeah.
because you're not asking for anything.
No.
And remember what you're up against on probates and most lead sources
Right.
is that those lead sources are going to a lot of different types of people.
Right.
In the case of probates, as we segue away from expireds this week, a lot of those sources are wholesale companies, meaning there is a buyer. Somebody's calling up and whatever they're saying, they are trying to purchase that property. So whatever their script is and whatever they do, there might be because the world of investing in real estate, yikes. There are so many of those people and they are so undertrained and so poorly performing that they are biasing the reaction to us when we call.
Okay. Gotcha.
Follow that?
Yeah.
Anybody who calls up and says they're an investment company, they're a real estate company, it could be to the point already where there's a complete bias to that phone call. So the FU could be on the tail end of 10 different investors calling.
Oh, sure.
Right?
I told you 40 to 60 packages
Yeah.
went to one man in Plymouth when I told him
There
I'd
you
like
go.
to say. He said, I got 40 to 60 packages just like yours.
Just like yours.
After the so-and-so passed away.
Right. Where now we have to dive in and say, well, I'm almost sure you didn't get anything like ours, right? Because ours is simply to help you. We're not looking to buy it. We're not looking to list it. We're looking to help you. So there's information in there. If you need an opinion of value for listing, of course, that's what we do.
And we will give you an assessment for free.
You got it. I mean, either way, if you want it for estate purposes or you want it for the purposes of,
Putting it on the market.
you got it, whatever, it's for free. So and I think people I have to tell you, in selling my own house here, I'm pretty exasperated, as you heard me today, by the pathetic world of online algorithms.
Right.
I now got an even more, a fresher look at it recently to see the pathetic ridiculousness that they are. They're watching what we do with pricing and they're adjusting their supposed algorithm based on what we're doing. It's not even an algorithm, I think, right? I'm starting to guess that it's a formula to watch price changes and adapt it wildly.
Yeah. It's a little parasitic.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm going to tell you that, in my opinion, more so than ever, and I'll open up the mics here in a second, more so than ever before, the value of a professional in property on-site evaluation is gone even higher.
Okay.
I think people are more confused by these algorithms and this online pursuit than they ever were before. I think agents are atrophying in their ability to look at comparables because they're not being taught. And I'm telling you, on the appointments you've put me out there, pricing is a bigger issue than it's ever been before.
Right.
So a proper property evaluation is worth its weight in gold. And our belief in that matters. All right, everybody. So there's a little update live from what we just dealt with today. So I'm going to open it up. And I know I had some of you, we were going to talk about some follow-up calls from the last time. I don't know if my team from Metro City had some stuff recorded, but let's open it up. Anybody wants to talk about this probate situation that we just had here? We'll talk about the beats, but we were just live training Autumn and I, based on what I heard on the probate side, as we begin to add that to her portfolio of calls. Tremendously successful right now in expireds.
Yep.
I have been in multiple meetings with people. We're extremely close on getting our first couple of listings, and it's millions of dollars that we're talking to. So I want to emphasize, you want to pay close attention on these sales training calls, okay?
Yeah, do those. Tell them the numbers. Anyone that wasn't on yesterday.
Yeah.
50 packages, $25 million worth of business sitting.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just refresh everybody what we said. So in 8 weeks worth of time, using the right strategy, having the right telemarketer, the human who's got the experience and saying the right things as we're evolving here has led us to have it plus or minus 50 people. We're trying to get our metrics. We're just catching up on those now because we've got our measurement sheets. We believe that around 50 packages have been sent out. And if I'm conservative on the value of the expired properties on average, we've sent out nearly $25 million worth. Okay.
And only one of them has been under 500.
Yeah. So
all of them are above.
Yeah. All of them were above 500. So 50 packages times 5, you have 25 million in potential sales. Again, not saying that we'll even get a fraction of them. That's not the point. The point is to say there was that much value out there where some human being on the other end of the phone said, yes, that sounds helpful. Go ahead and send it and follow up. This is permission marketing, by the way. I want to make that very clear to everybody. We have been granted permission to send our marketing. That's a big difference. Permission marketing is a huge difference from just randomly marketing to people. So, a little loud there, Gail.
That's also a controlled technique.
Sorry.
That's okay. All good. Okay, so go to that. She just said that she's been using this term control technique recently.
Control tactics,
Yeah.
control, because the way I've titled the notes is control tactics and control techniques. What I said yesterday was that conversational style, which I really pound into your heads to stay conversational. And if you don't feel conversational, the technique is to talk slowly, and that will make you sound conversational, even if you're struggling. But conversational style is a control tactic. It gives them plenty of time to hang up, be nasty, tell you their thoughts, or ask for your package. It gives you time to think. If they throw something at you, because you've been talking slow and conversationally, you won't sound odd if you're taken aback and you need a moment to think of your answer. The control tactic is the permission, and I don't remember using that term or really pulling that term apart, permission marketing, but that is what it is. May I do that? May I send this to you? And permission marketing is also a control tactic, because what you're doing is you're leading them to believe that they are still in control. And that is a very important dynamic that has to happen in any conversation where you want to come out. And I know this sounds a little shark-like, but where you want to win. You want to win that conversation.
Yeah, well, I think look at it. It's an altruistic thing too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. I mean, control tactic for the sake of prospects are silently begging to be led. Number
That's
one,
right.
I'm a huge believer in that.
That's
So
right.
the concept in this case, when we talk about control, is not manipulation, and I think some people
No.
confuse that. And I want to be clear
And
about
I
that.
want to be clear about
Yep.
that too, because it isn't manipulation. It's you doing a good job at being of service and identifying, knowing that they want to be guided, and speaking the right way to them so that they will fall into your hands. Once again, that sounds manipulative, but it's not. It's actually a service performed, because if you vary and you don't do it properly, then you've done them a disservice, because they are not going to be your client.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Let's go into some Q&A.
Permission to hang up?
Go ahead. What's that, Grant?
I heard Autumn say that gives them permission to hang up.
Yes.
So when I heard that, I mean, we do our calls and we'll kind of present who we are. This is Grant over at the Van Dyke Group, calling about your home. We give it a beat, and sometimes they hang up. I mean, so is that okay if they hang up after we do an intro?
Absolutely.
But there's always that silence for a second or two, and you don't know which way it's going to go. It's like I hold my breath for a minute.
You know what, Grant? Let them hang up, because, to move towards the more business side of this and less on the emotional side, it is a numbers game when you're making those phone calls, and you need them to hang up on you and get off of your phone so you can get to the person who will respond.
Yeah.
Okay, we're fine letting them hang up and then try them again the following day or the next call session.
If they hang up on me, I don't bother with them. I let a couple months go by before I even try again. Maybe even 3 or 6 months, depending on my base of leads. If I've got 1,000 leads, I don't need to talk to them for
There
a
you
year.
go. Okay. Grant, you get that? Everybody get that?
I
You really want to deal from that position of plenty like
Yeah,
that.
Exactly.
I mean, look at Grant. One thing that I can now, it's as I explained the whole process of building a business in real estate in the modern digital age requires tremendous perseverance and patience.
Yes.
Tremendous. It has taken a long time, as I told Autumn, because if you really look at the way that we did this all, I have to give you some context here before I get into the position of plenty, because it won't make sense otherwise. You and I grew up certainly a lot of you met me. I've been in a long time, a lot longer than a lot of you, but some of you met me when the shift was happening to digital buyer driven business, right, Grant? I mean, it's still a big part of what you did. Alan, I'm just thinking of Alan because, he came in here, and I'm thinking of, we had a good run and the business was there. But what lesson we were taught there is that it's too easy to get sucked into the way that the economy is kind of floating this around, only to come back around to say, well, wait a minute, something never changed about this business. And that was the fact that it's an inventory business, Grant, right? So the inventory is the listing. I'm not saying that you can't inventory a bunch of buyer clients as well as a business person, clearly. But the point being is that without listings, without the multiple listing service, this is the Wild West all over again. So if Michael Gerber's sitting here and he's saying, how does the business work? It works based on listings. So the first thing, Grant, is that you have to realize that there is a vast amount of people who need help listing and selling their property. It's bigger than I even thought it was until recently. Let me tell you why. How can you say that after 20 years in the business? Well, because when you shift and you mature as a manager and you just embrace the simplest facts, it is an inventory business. I know there's a lot of agents that want to argue that, yeah, but buyers are easy and they were blah, 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 whatever it is. I'm not throwing the buyers out. I'm saying, of course, it's critical that you have buyers and sellers. But once you get into the listing side and you start to pursue something steady, Grant, what you find out is if you make, and we're trying to track our true hours and connects and all that. We're going to give you real metrics in real time. Goals are already being set because I have a professional telemarketer, right? I have one. And so when we give her that measurement, what she's shown me already is a position of plenty, 8 weeks in. 8 weeks in, Grant. Okay. Now, I know I've had this conversation with several people in Seattle, especially where there really aren't a lot of expireds, or they doesn't perceive, they don't perceive them to be, or if they do, they go back on quickly. And it's exasperating to chase something that's vanishing. That's why I brought up probates today, because people that are in a hot market, guess what? People still die everywhere. So any way that you can think about it, listings proliferate. A lot of you say, oh, the inventory is limited. Really? Have you ever in your entirety of your career not found inventory? No. There's always inventory. There's always inventory. This business would have dried up and gone away. There's always inventory. So I think, Grant, you have to think that if they hang up on you, sure, have a system for maybe letting them breathe, maybe figuring out, was it me? Was it them? What was it? Yeah. Putting them back a queue, whatever. But there are so many people that are picking up the phone. This is why we give you this metric where they're allowing true permission marketing. Not that we are interfering with them, Grant, and just mailing every expired and every probate. We're actually getting permission from them verbally over the phone to mail or remail a marketing package. I don't know a better definition of permission marketing. And there are plenty of them, Grant, as I've discussed. Laura and Autumn are trying to backtrack and get the exact number of packages. Might be difficult to go all the way back 8 weeks ago, but we're beginning to track them. And we guesstimate in a pretty good educated guesstimation, there's been about 50. And I did the math for you. That's 25 million. So suddenly a minimum, 25 minimum. We think it's much higher because there's some multi-million-dollar properties in there. So if you think about it that way, Grant, you go back to the math, and it helps you in the micro moment handle the rejection. It really does.
Just let them go.
But really, Grant, for me as the owner, to bring my anxiety down in 8 weeks, which is exactly what's happened, I said, well, wait a minute. We don't need to take the one where I went out and they're not realistic or they're not motivated. I went, again, so I'm actually going out and saying, if I'm not going to say the name here because these people, this is public, but there's a guy with a beautiful house. But if that's not going to be at the right price, I don't care how beautiful it is. I can't pull a rabbit out of a hat, and I can't afford to drain the resources of this company to babysit
No,
somebody
we can
who's
always
not going. Yeah.
We can, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
Go, no,
interrupt.
go.
We can always afford to say no.
Hmm.
And it makes our positioning and our job much clearer when we say no and keep those no's out of our main pool of those that are really solid. That's what we always need to be working on. And so this is why I'm saying, Grant, let them hang up. Give them a chance to hang up and get off your phone. Because you need to find that person whose timing is right, who's literally sitting by the phone waiting for your call. And I know that sounds funny, but there are people out there doing that. They're literally waiting for help. Do you follow me?
I do. That's a very interesting thought.
Well, hang
It
on
happens
to it.
that I don't think about.
Say,
Hang on to it.
hold on one second. Come on. I want to hear more from you. Grant, go ahead.
Well, no, it's a mindset shift. Like, when I call, I don't think I'm being a pest at all because I have a great message and great information for them.
Mhm.
So I'm good that way. But I never really thought about there are people actually standing by their phone,
Yes.
not literally, but they're waiting for a call for a professional to deliver the message that they want to hear at the right time.
I think they're actually praying for it. And I'm going to give you a real anecdote.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a real anecdote. Okay. I just went out to an appointment this week to two 93-year-olds. Okay. 93-year-olds, been married for 72 years, Grant. And what Autumn and I discovered is that they have been on and off or tried or thought about doing this just simply to live closer to the kids who are essentially begging them to come closer
For 3 years.
for 3 years, Grant. And until I walk through the door, and I'm going to tell you, the tweaks aren't that big that I need to make. I do need to make some price adjustment. I do need to help them clean out the basement, but it's something I could probably resolve inside of 60 days. So if you think that they weren't sitting there praying
Yes.
that something would happen, then you just haven't made enough phone calls yet. Okay. This morning, I'll give you another one. So I went out again today. She's actually a licensed real estate agent, and she got all the way to the communication phase, and it was really close. And somebody couldn't close the barn door over $10,000 on a $700,000 plus. I'm just telling you, it was almost as if she was relieved. And in both cases, when we polled them and said, what's most important to you? The essence of it, Grant, was, I just want an honest presentation
Right.
of my situation. I mean, Grant, I've never gone into so many in such a short period of time where we don't know these people. These aren't referred. These are people in the wilderness
Right.
that have just not gotten the information that they've needed. And I'm not telling you it's rocket science.
Mm-hmm.
So just keep going through that triage. I've always said this. I've always said, look, it's almost like a plane crash out in your backyard, okay? You hear the plane go down, you go running out to help everybody. And the first person you roll up on is a big burly football player who tells you to F off, right? F off. Can't you see the plane just crashed and you're sitting there trying, leave me alone, don't touch me. Do you run back inside and suck your thumb and say it didn't work? Or do you continue to go through the crowd and somebody says, thank God you came. I think I'm bleeding out. Can you tie your belt around my leg?
There you go.
I'm just telling you right now, it is such, the lack of information getting to these people, Grant, is absolutely a pandemic.
And that speaks to the timing. It speaks to timing, and it speaks to why you want them to hang up. You want the bullies to hang up, the ones who are going to try to control you from A to Z. They're going to end up being more trouble than they're worth. Catch them on a better day.
Go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, absolutely, they're more trouble than worth, and probably 75% of the reason they canceled or expired to start with.
That's right.
Yeah. And you know, Grant,
Some of them.
yeah, Grant, it's weird. I'm finding an extreme on expireds. Some have flat out just gotten poor service, no strategy, no help whatsoever. And others, they are the problem. So the skill set is, you know, it's almost like one end really needs to be led by the nose and told exactly what to do in as soft and a kind of way as you can. The other needs to be slapped upside the head and say, stop. What are you doing?
Right.
You said you were 10. What do you're in the way.
Right.
Right. So it's interesting,
Good.
Grant.
Yes.
I really have found, that a lot of the extremes in that pile. And now as we enter into the probates, we're getting extreme reactions. And I understand why, because you take the heightened, emotion of a real estate transaction to begin with, and then you double down on heightened emotion with death.
Right.
Come on. Like, that's a high calling. That's a high skill set from an emotional maturity standpoint to be able to tame that situation.
And that's why I don't bother with it. If they tell me F you, I say thank you and I hang up. Or if I even get a chance to say, okay, I understand. If normally they just say that and they hang up, and that's fine. Please get off my phone so I can get to that woman who I have met already 9, 10, 12 times and sent packages to, who is crying because she doesn't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that woman, unless she's in her own way, that woman will be easier to deal with because she knows she needs me.
Yeah, but I'm gonna highlight and underline for everybody here. If there's one thing I had was patience and perseverance to arrive at this point in the redo of my business, I am now certain, based on fact, there are millions of dollars out there that can be converted if you will get better at understanding how to speak to these people properly.
You will keep
Yeah.
dialing.
Yeah. And she
have
says,
to
of
keep
course,
dialing.
and if you will keep dialing, because it is the triage
That's
plane
how you're
crash.
speaking.
It's the plane crash. You're going to have to go through a lot of no, don't help me's. You're going to have to go through nobody answering.
And then you'll
You're
get
going
the thank God.
and you will get the thank God you
Right.
showed up.
But you have to be a hunter. Telemarketing is hunting. That's what you're doing. And you do have to be patient, like you would be with fishing, let's say.
And we'll get you the metrics. We'll show you what patience looks like with hours and dials, et cetera.
Right.
All right. My team up in Ottawa. Do I have you all? Because I want to circle back around to you all. I really want to dive in with Sarah Corey's crew up there and really just kind of check in again on you all. Are you there with me today?
Yeah, we're all here. How are you, Danny?
Fantastic, Sarah. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good. So, Sarah, let's get into this a little bit here. You've had the chance now to visit with us for several weeks, and circle back with me on some of the things that you've heard that might have challenged the way that you do things, and any adjustments or any thoughts. I'd like to hear from you as a pro at this too.
I think the biggest thing for me is kind of breaking out of, I'm not going to say bad habits, it's just a habit that I've learned doing this for so many years.
Yeah.
So it's changing my conversations and offering different value propositions to people that I'm speaking to.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said on the first call, it's not being so kind of nebulous and offering what everyone's kind of offering, just doing something a little bit different, going a bit above and beyond. So my conversations are a little bit more valuable.
Yeah. Sarah, what's interesting is I think that the way you've been trained is just fine to remember the beats. However, like Vanessa and Voltaire, what I was talking about is I just think we're if we go too far to one side of this pendulum swing or the other, you lose best practices. Yeah, you lose best practices. So I want to make sure I emphasize to you that your ability to introduce yourself in that first beat is probably as good as anybody in the industry. You, Pat, Dave, you get it because you do the volume of calls because like, Autumn, you're dedicated to that body of work. So you get that. But I think there's somewhere in there that I kind of wanted to unpack a little bit this week as well with the offer, because as I told Tarek, Steve, and Sarah Corey, I think there's huge success being left on the table in that long-term follow-up offer. And I think the reason why it's being missed is we forget to gear shift back to an individualized conversation. Okay. And what I mean by that is that when you individualize a conversation, you're listening to that other human being's personal situation. And I think we've emphasized it in the mastermind yesterday. We emphasized it with the seller qualifying questionnaire that once somebody says yes to a meeting with me, that we are actually really asking better quality questions about them, about the way they feel about the property, right, Sarah? So we're really extracting from them their personal feelings about this, which is actually having them read their mind out loud to us. So I think the power of some questions in there, Sarah, would help you really begin to get into more of an individualized relationship,
Right.
so that subsequently when you go to make the follow-up call, you're not just like hitting the top of your head like a bobblehead and spitting out the same old. Because what should be different and to your advantage versus your competition is that what you're saying to them is a little bit more personal the next time, and the next time, and the next time. See, what I'm learning, even in short order, is that when Autumn has booked me an appointment, I actually did. I sat down, I broke this down on our mastermind call yesterday with all the team leaders, Sarah, that these questions had revealed to me even what room in the house was the lady's favorite room, and why, and what it meant to her, so that when I went in the home and we were walking through it, I'm saying, oh, this is the room Autumn was telling me is your favorite. Why do you like this room so much? And boom, it's so personal all of a sudden in that moment. And it's so appreciated
Yes.
that you're about them, but you're also about the tactical, part of going through the house. Why do you like this?
Yes.
Because it's going to matter to somebody else, right? Somebody else that buys this house is going to like this private room up here with the Juliet balcony that looks over the private woods.
Right.
All of a sudden it becomes the story. So it's not just you're connecting with the human, Sarah. You're actually in advance building the story for the sales. That makes sense to you?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, go ahead. Who else? Was that you, Grant? That's an Both of you were moved by that.
Yeah, that was me with it. Yeah, no, it makes total sense.
Sarah,
It brings it together, brings you closer to.
Grant, stay with this with
them,
Sarah.
Feel like you're understanding them.
Yeah, Grant, stay with this with Sarah for a second. Here's what's interesting about this, okay? I think people have missed the point that I've been trying to make about the listing side. And any of you that want to talk about the buy side, this equally applies there. And I'm happy to dive in and tell you my thoughts there because I have some very strong ones. But again, if there's one mistake you all make, is you don't lead by thinking, get the listings. If you want to control predictability for your own business, get listings. Get them by helping people with a simple plan. But it's similarly on the buy side, how we approach that same thing with relationship.
Mhm.
Why are they buying? What's most important to them? What's their life going to look like on the other side of it? But on the listing side, in essence, every time you talk to any sort of a listing contact or potential, you are in a pre-listing mode.
Mhm.
Okay. As much as the context changes. So as much as I start by saying something differently to the probate, to the FSBO, to the expired, to the internet home evaluation lead, as much as I start off a little bit differently to have them recognize, here's who I am, and here's what I know about your context. That's the fastest and scripted way to make connection in our business. Here's who I am from this real estate company.
Mhm.
And I know about you in real estate because of this.
Right.
You got to get those two beats out like lightning fast. You can make them conversational, but if you don't, you lose that beat.
Well, but explain what that first beat is. Hello,
Hello, I'm Danny Griffin from Griffin Realty Group. The reason I'm calling is because
somebody
an operative word.
is because you're an administrator, or because I saw your beautiful house.
Because I saw you trying to sell it yourself. Because I saw you came online and wanted an
There you
evaluation.
go.
Every moment, the because is a transition because it's about you
Right.
in this way.
Right.
And I just think people miss that very scripted to Voltaire, if he's on, and Vanessa, that was my point. 100%. If you lose that moment on the phone, let alone in the house,
It's not gonna
you're
work.
dead.
Yeah.
You're all of a sudden talking at somebody, and that's where their brain triggers to say, warning, warning, warning.
Yeah.
This is not helping
Well,
me
they should-
survive.
Yeah.
Tell this lady to F herself.
Right.
Hang up, or just tell them I don't need it.
Right.
You're begging for
Mhm.
the negative reaction. So Grant, going back to your pause, and Sarah, you have very quick pace, right? So I don't know what it sounds like. I'd love to hear one of your recorded calls or several of them. But I think if we don't get out, hi, Sally, this is Danny Griffin from Griffin Realty Group, or even if we don't know the name, right? Hi, this is Danny Griffin from Griffin Realty Group. The reason I'm calling is because there's something about you.
Excuse me.
There's something about you.
Right.
And I have this thing because of that thing.
Right.
Follow me? If you don't get that out, I just think you're more likely than not, you're probably not recognizing the opportunity is running out the back door because the brain is shutting down on the other end. Warning, 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 I'm losing this. Brain shutting down. So the first 2 beats of your script are a must. I think in some way or another, you can adapt it, sure, make it conversational. But I think if you don't understand that trigger, this is who I am. I have this context. And I'm calling you because, not like start talking at them and, just trying all these weird techniques and all this stuff. I'm calling you because you have the situation and I have this thing that will help. List of properties, evaluation, probate guideline, timeline. I have these things for you and I'm going to send them out to you. Would that be okay? And there's a big thing that Seth Godin's been talking about for years called permission marketing. If you can get a yes because you set it up correctly, it's almost a logical trigger, Sarah, right? If I can pick up the phone and tell you I know your context and I have a thing that helps you, it's almost logical for them to say yes. Like, let that sink in. If they truly have context and you are giving them something valuable, it's almost logical that they're triggered to say yes. That's the technique and tactic. Does that make sense, Sarah?
It does.
And that's what I just wanted you to slow down. And Voltaire, when we were talking about this universal callback script, because you've been taught it, he's been taught it, I've been taught it. I think there are universal situations in the beginning. Yes, I think universally speaking, you better be quick and to the point about why you're calling them, what you know about them, and what's in it for them.
Mm-hmm.
Boom.
Mm-hmm.
Then in a perfect world, which seems to be happening pretty regularly with us following that technique, people are saying, you have my permission to send it, to resend it. I will accept it if you've already sent it.
And now you have my permission to come look at my home.
Okay, hold on.
Next step.
Right. But everybody's rushing to come see my home. See, because we don't hit that first scripted beat about having some content. This is where the content marketers get this. And content marketers have been around pre-digital age. They've always sent out the free report.
Right.
They've always sent out the brochure. It's always been something.
Right.
It's the way you introduce yourself further. Okay, you bothered me on the phone, but you sound reasonable. Sure, I'm going to give you my permission to send me your stuff, but it better be good and professional.
That is very true.
Right?
That is the vibe.
So now all of a sudden the permission marketing is send it to me. Great. I'll follow up with you to make sure you receive it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, somebody asked the other day in the mastermind, appropriately so. So what are you saying? The goal, and this is how weirdly people think. So what are you saying? The goal is just to send out a package? No. If you
that's
can,
the beginning of a big, huge mountain.
Right. But if you can subsequently, Sarah, I'll speak to you. If you can subsequently in that moment get the appointment because they talk to you. Yes, great, Sarah. Send it out. I really need it. Yeah, so tell me what's going on. Now you're into something. You enter a whole different script, which is way more individualized and conversational, but you're into what you wanted, Sarah. You wanted that appointment if you could get it right there, if it was appropriate. So expireds, it could be very appropriate to get a right now appointment. FSBOs, probates that have to sell, internet leads that were desperate for a quick, sure, they're going to show up the more you do, but you have to arrive at that spot by making it more personal, even though in the beginning it was much more scripted. Thoughts about that, Sarah, Dave, Pat, any of you?
Sorry, you were cutting out a bit.
A lot of it?
I think it's brilliant.
Go ahead. What was that?
It's so natural. It's so natural in like humans. Just getting to the point. We have something great. I like how you leaned in afterwards. So tell me what's going on.
Well, I personalized it very quickly, didn't I? I'm trying to give people permission to understand that conversation is personalization. Like the quicker you can do it, the quicker you can make it feel real. And it's just about being real. Now, look, I'm with Voltaire. I'm with him. And I want to make it very clear that if you start screwing around in those first couple of beats by babbling, you're dead. You're dead. Don't do that. If there's ever a place in telemarketing to be scripted, it's definitely the first couple of beats. There's no doubt, because Grant, think about you know, you're a Realty Cast website user now. Think about why I did the videos up front. Grant Van Dyke has 7 seconds to let them know he's in the real estate lifestyle business in Arizona. 7 seconds, right? If the metrics are real. So how long does it take to get these first 2 lines out? Hey, Grant, Danny Griffin calling from Griffin Realty Group. I'm calling you because I saw that you're the personal representative for a probate estate. Right? How many seconds was that?
Right.
3? 4?
Mhm.
And then the next line is, just want to let you know that I mailed you a copy of a glossary of, and now this is going to change, a glossary of probate terms, a list of attorneys, and a timeline. I thought that would be helpful. Right? Or say, I'd
Right.
like to send it to you. Right. Whatever. But the beats are so scripted and so fast. That's where the script is everything. That's where it's everything. Because I have context, and most importantly, I arrived at a gift. You tracking me?
Mhm.
Okay.
Can I address what you were saying about what we heard yesterday about is the goal just to send out a package?
Yeah, Doug was talking about that yesterday. Doug, are you here today? Go ahead.
I just want to address that, and I'm just going to use an analogy here, and I'm just going to read it because I just wrote it. Every call or contact with your client should have something from you that positions you for the next step in your own sales process. It's like playing pool. A good pool player takes the shot and leaves the cue ball in a perfect position to sink the next shot. The pool shark never loses sight of the end of the game. He's in it to win it. So all of these phone calls, all of these content mailings, they're all part of a giant goal. And that goal should always be dead set right in between your eyes. And you should always have your eye on it. With that said, each little piece is very important. So make sure that you always leave it where you're in a position to make a second phone call, to stop by the house, whatever that next step is in your own sales process. So thank you. I just wanted to get that out.
100%. And this is why I said, I don't think people are seeing the whole.
You need to see
And I
the
think,
whole.
and
I'm always
well,
seeing
and here's
the
the
whole.
problem. Here's the problem. I think they're getting too micro. So somebody like Sarah, who's been doing this for years and hundreds of calls,
Mhm.
can get very micro and get detached from the overall process
Yeah, no.
and lose their place, their understanding of the value that they have on the assembly line of stitching this relationship
Yes.
together. And I think that's precisely the problem. And by the way, all of you team leaders, owners, managers who have folks like Sarah and Autumn, I think you better understand that you owe them the explanation. That's why I spent the time with you this morning.
Right.
Explain the evolution of the business so that you see the part of the whole. So this is a pre-listing telemarketing conversation that's happening. That's what it is. You are pre-listing this property, right? So the whole concept is that conversation is going to lead towards that, right? That makes sense? Yeah,
That's what we're doing here.
correct. Okay, so go ahead, more. I want to hear more from you guys. You guys are all quiet today. Hello, team in Metro City. I should be hearing from all of you. All of you.
I guess my 2 cents would be, I think sometimes we try to overcomplicate it, and I think it has to be really simple, really conversational, and actually not waiting to see what you're going to say next or planning what you're going to say next, actually listening to what the person's saying.
Excellent.
And then being able to reiterate what they're saying and kind of bring a bit of your own experience or your own life stories into it. I definitely try to really personalize my conversations to the person, bringing in my own life situations to kind of mirror what they're saying, and that really helps. So I just keep the conversation like you're talking to a friend, just very simple, very conversational, and very
That's
genuine.
right.
Sarah, have you ever been out on a listing presentation with your previous team or this one?
I have not yet.
Okay. See, that was the biggest mistake that I ever made. And I don't know if Sarah Corey's on the phone call, Steve Tarek, or any of those folks. Every single one of you should be tagging along a buyer experience and a seller experience at some point in time. You're actually completely disconnected from what you're working towards. And I think if you really saw what that was like, you could appreciate it and understand it much better. I committed that crime with Laura. I mean, for years, Laura has worked with me and was just completely disconnected from what it was like. Worse, Laura hears me all the time coach and train, and she hears me talk about real estate. She'd actually never experienced me in the house. And she's like, who was that? Right? She had no idea. I'll never forget her walking out of there, and she was just completely stunned at who I was. And I said, why? She said, I've never seen you listen so much in my entire life. And it's because I'm always in front of her in a teaching mode. And, you're trying to stimulate conversation. Mm-hmm. But the truth is, I love that 7-step plan because it allows me, and you haven't seen what I'm talking about, Sarah, but if you've never experienced what it's actually like, that's why I can't stand just doing these calls without recorded calls, right? Because it's really, really important to hear what it's really like on the other end. And that's why I'm very empathetic, Sarah, to you, Pat, and Dave. And, Dave talked about it a couple of weeks ago. His freedom, it was almost like I had to fight for him to get the permission from Steve and Tarek, not Sarah, because she understood me early, but to give them that permission to free him up to do himself so he could be more effective for the company. Because where Dave, and I'm presuming the same for you and Pat, you're human beings that can talk the lights out. Sure, but you're also human beings that have the ability to talk about what it is that's valuable and connect these humans to this company versus the others down the street. So if you don't go out and experience what you're setting up, that's insanity, right? Think about it. Right. You're booking an appointment that you've never even experienced. So you're guessing at the value of the agent going out there. It becomes too scripted. It becomes less humane. So you end up saying what you said based on technique and tactic. Look, I hear you, Danny. I think it's if I just listen to what they say and I treat them like a friend, that's technique and tactic. But as part of the overall process, to see the true value, like to follow Steve or Tarek into a listing presentation, sit there with a notepad and observe and to understand what it is that they do live. Now all of a sudden, like, oh my gosh, that's like you really helped that person. You really gave that person some insight. You begin to see the value. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's definitely something that Tarek wanted me to put into my calendar, is to go on a few listing appointments.
100%. Like yesterday, every single one of you that are on a telemarketing call and haven't seen a live presentation, you can't get out to one fast enough. All right, Sonia, who else is on here? Alan, Gail, Mutart, your mic was super loud, so I had to close it down. Katie, anybody? Yeah, I want to hear from some people. Yeah, speak up here.
I was just going to kind of, it's Katie.
Yeah, hi, Katie.
I was just going to say, it was probably, I've been working with Grant for like 2 years now. In the first year, I didn't go on any appointments, really.
Yep.
And then it was like, as soon as I started going on the appointments with him, like buyer, it was like everything just made more sense. And just like as a team, it was like we were on the same page more.
Yeah. Tell me what you learned by being in the field and how you made adjustments after that was over. Tell me a little bit more about it.
I guess I just saw the way that Grant spoke to the clients in person, and then that kind of also helped me like on the phone know what to talk about.
Tell me what be specific. That's what I mean. Tell me specifically what you saw. How did he talk to them?
Well, it was really professional, but it was also like personable.
Yep. Cool.
I mean, I can't even think of a specific example right now.
Yeah. Okay.
That's very empathetic when in the selling situation and why they're moving, why they're, doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like we were kind of joking about it how the other day, it's almost like sometimes you're like their therapist when you're in there.
Not almost. I think you're 100. Yeah.
You got laughing.
I'm going to tell you all, we all have our psychology degrees by default. So you're 100% right. I mean, I think that's absolutely right what you just said, and you just hit a nerve with all of us. Look at the highest paid real estate agents and teams in the world get what you just said. Okay. They get what you just said. And I don't mean just the top producers. I think you can get away with being a top producer by buying leads and just pounding phones and not worrying about people. I mean, I know enough people that do it, but I will tell you that the catch-22 in their businesses is that they're far less profitable. Okay. I'll explain. All you team leaders want to lean in on this one, especially, or any business owner that ends up hearing this. I think the key is if you don't connect to serving the human being, you end up pursuing the transaction, and pursuit of transactions gets expensive. Why? You end up going to a lot of third parties with the presumption that somebody's cracked the code that you can't crack yourself. And over the years, 20 years I've been doing this, when I think to the agents that have done the best, they have invested enormous time in people that they were serving. And those people just come back so quickly and so loyally, and they refer so loyally that in the long run, it's less expensive to do business like that. Mm-hmm. So if you forget people that say, yeah, you know, he did a good job for me, but you know, I don't have any feeling for him. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's nothing. Even if you got them top dollar and you're wondering, why did they go back and relist with somebody else? Because there was no feeling. And I forgot. You never made me part of your world. Right. And it was a huge transaction. And my perception is you got a pretty big check. And I never felt anything from you. That's the danger in transactional teams, groups, and agencies. And again, I'm saying it works. They get their transactions, but I know better as a coach. I've seen many an income statement, and I will tell you the margin on companies like that, not pretty.
Well, there's an even bigger goal than just the one transaction that you're doing here. There's referrals. There's that market. There's just having a connection.
But that's what I mean.
It's like knowing the scripture, but not knowing the God of the scripture. Not to be religious.
But the acquisition of a client. This is what we're talking about in sales. The cost to acquire a client, not a lead. That's only part of it.
Right.
It's business 101. And if all these telemarketers and outside sales agents don't understand, that's on the manager and the owner first.
Yeah, of course.
To just not look at, but not to dive into all the problems of managing a business and the challenges, but to say, look at, here's the role that you play here. Yes. You have to understand that it costs money, time, and effort to go out and get services at the right price. We get quality contact information. We bring that to you. And this is where a lot of management breaks down, and why a lot of these folks, why my mastermind members get their teams in here for free, because it's so critical to me to have them understand what role they play for that person. Because if you don't get it, you're going through these motions in this scripting, and then the other person is managing you with a hammer going, we need more appointments. We need more. Duh.
Yeah.
Come on, like, duh.
Yeah.
Of course we need more appointments, but how are we acquiring them? How are you expecting? I can't believe how many of my mastermind members in this group have never listened to a recorded call of the people that do the job for them.
Oh, no.
It's staggering to me how many of them have abdicated it 100%. This is like saying the most critical component of manufacturing a relationship that leads to a real estate transaction is that initial conversation and its follow-up. Before an outside sales agency opportunity happens, the disconnect at that moment in time is so dramatic, even in my own mastermind group. It's stunning how much money is being lost right there.
If you don't take care
and you know what, Danny?
Oh, go ahead, Gail.
I've done all of that wrong too. Exactly what you're talking about. Exactly. And so I've changed my ways, of course, because it's painful, number one. And number two, it just makes, I don't know how I got so removed from everything. It doesn't matter because I'm not there anymore, but I was there.
Yeah.
And it was painful.
Yeah.
And pain or love will move you. And pain, that kind of pain is within your business, because your business is to help you to have your life goals, to pay for your life goals, and also to make you feel good about yourself. And I wasn't. And so I think in the last, probably 3 to 4 years, believe me, I've changed a lot.
Gail, here's
And,
Gail. Gail, let me.
and I have a lot of gratitude towards you, Danny,
Thank you.
because you bring it out, you talk about it, and people have to look at it and they have to say to themselves, why did I do that? Or why am I doing that? Or they can just be certain and be mad at you, one or two things to do. But I think it's better to listen and then see if that's part of who you are. And then to change that, because one of our mantras at Rossetti Realty is work harder on yourself than you do on your business.
Right.
And that way you will attract and become the person you want to be, more importantly, and the money will come.
Gail, let me speak to the why is it that Laura and I talk about this a lot from a sales perspective too. Why is it that every time we sort of get our bearings straight like you have, why is it so simple? And why did we not see that all along? And I'll go back to why I'm so moved by Donald Miller's affiliation with the way the brain works to that story brand, is that what he's saying, and this could apply to us as the manager, Gail, why we stop doing this and why we don't teach it to the people that we bring in, is because it just feels like so much work that the brain normally just naturally shuts down. It just does. It says that is too much work, Gail. Just get the person and just throw them on the phone and go back to doing what it is. Abdication is probably what the brain is saying you should do to save yourself from drowning in energy. When the truth is, it's a lie, right? It's a lie the brain plays on us because you can't thrive like that. You can thermostatically survive. That's why I said about transactional agents, they can survive and they can get enough cash flow. But it's not even remotely close to the best business. It's not predictable and sustainable. And eventually most people that run their business like that, there's just an end game that stops one day. There's no sale. And they wonder why. Well, you can't really sell one of these. You could have had you stopped and thought about it, but you never did. Why? Because my brain just kept telling me I better get outside the cave, hunt something down, put it on the table, eat it, go back and do it again. So you're acting with your primitive brain, and that's normal. It's okay to recognize that. But if you want to evolve as a salesperson, you have to at some point in time, and I mean regularly some point in time, work on your business. You take it even further to say working on your business starts with working on yourself. So what do? If you're working on yourself, you recognize what I just said. The brain is going to cheat me. Like my primitive brain is going to cheat me out of evolution because it just wants to survive. It doesn't necessarily say go evolve, go think higher. It doesn't say that. So there's this battle in each of us. And that's why a lot of the salespeople who are requested to come on here and Campfire, they need a cattle prod or a kick in the tail to get there because you have to come on with me and sweat. You have to challenge, like Sarah's outstandingly good already at what she does. I know her background. I know her resume. But the first thing I'm doing is going, all right, slow down. I don't think, that's the best technique because that's the survival technique. Book an appointment, book an appointment, book an appointment, book an appointment, right? And what that leads to is a much lesser performance than is what's possible. And Dave, who's already made the adjustment in Metro City up in Ottawa, he's telling you it worked better. He's telling you by slowing down, being strategic, connecting to the human. He's telling you that, no, I didn't stop the rhythm of being self-accountable to the number of calls, but I did change the way I listened. I did change the way I talked to people, and I set up a better offer because I understand it's not a one-off opportunity. Right? So, Gail, it's got a lot to do.
And the thing is, you won't have burnout either. So if you're engaged with people, and so for whatever reason, I wasn't a long time ago, but now I am. And it makes me feel good about myself. And when you do that, you start developing self-confidence and it snowballs. The point is I love what Tony Robbins says, stay guard of your mind. Watch what's going in there, because in the ether, out there in the air, stuff can come at you. And if you don't have muscle memory or you're not already up in the morning saying to yourself, I am wonderful, I'm confident, this is going to be a fantastic day, whatever that is, you can fight it back and forth. I had so many things happen this last week, and I was just amazed at how I'm not like reeling. I mean, like I used to be. And just some major stuff. And I pay, of course, that I say it all to the glory of God. However, I know that I have to work at it too. So that's what I do.
Yeah.
And it's working.
Yeah.
And it's awesome.
Yeah. But it was hard, wasn't it? But it was hard, wasn't it? It was hard to recognize. Yeah. To recognize them. Yeah. To keep accountable. All right. Let me give a last
really
call.
Hard. It's getting easier.
Yeah.
It's hard.
True. But it is getting easier. And I will agree with
I
you.
got the answer.
Yeah.
The solution. I'm not staying in the problem. It's really, 95% of the solution, 5% of the problem. I had an agent that was here that was complaining, I don't know, to me about another person in the office. And I just said, stop. And she said, okay, I'll pray for that person. She left and she never came back.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I don't want that in my office.
Yeah.
I'm not really interested in people building themselves up to feel good about making other people look bad.
Yeah.
That doesn't do anything for anybody. So I love the fact that I love who I am.
Yeah.
And that I'm able to share that with others.
Okay, but now to bring that authentically into the way that the business runs is everything. To really authentically say, no matter what the outcome is, I'm going to make a telemarketing call that way. No matter what the outcome is, I'm going to give a presentation face-to-face that way. No matter what the outcome is, I'm going to recruit that way. And becoming detached from the outcome it's like, look, I'm going to tell you how I feel about people, how I'm going to treat my agents, how I'm going to treat my sellers and my buyers. I'm going to say it transparently, trusting that magnetically it's going to pull in better business. I think that's exactly what gets lost, Gail. And I think it sounds squishy to a lot of the tactical technicians. Yeah. Well, we're not really buying into that. Oh, good. Go keep doing what you're doing because it doesn't end well. I've seen the movie, right?
This is what I'm saying.
And some people, I'm just saying, and I was one of them a while back, didn't like myself that much. So why would I want to show who I am?
Yeah.
I wanted to be somebody who I wasn't.
What a great
So that's really the
point.
part about working on yourself.
Yep.
And to know that you are, I'm a child of the Most High God. That's got to be about the best thing ever. I'm a princess. So I
we know that, Gail. Gail, we know that about you.
Oh.
Yeah, that's not lost on us, Gail. We know that. We call you princess.
Daddy.
Yeah.
You are awesome. Fantastic. Outstanding.
Gail, the check's in the mail. Thank you. All right, everybody, listen, last call. Anything burning that I haven't covered for you today? I don't like you to go off into a weekend on a sales training day where you have a burning question about something. Yes or no? Final comment? Okay, hearing none, go have a good weekend. Thanks for being here today. Appreciate you all, care about you all, and go try this stuff, but pay close attention to serving people. The rest will follow. See you later.
Thank you.
That was a great last line. Pay close attention to serving people.